Hey there, DJ here, and today we will be checking out apparently like a firearms expert, reviewing sort of Valorant guns and how it sort of stacks up to the real life counterpart. So if you like these types of videos, make sure to drop me a like to let me know, comment down below, what other videos I'm going to check out next, and I'll be sure to do so. Also, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to this channel and make sure to check out my live streams over at twitch.tv/DJPlays if you'd like to be part of chat here and automatically be shouted out in my videos and see what I record next. But let's get right to the video.
This is Jonathan Ferguson, the keeper of firearms and artillery at the Royal Armouries Museum in the UK, which houses a collection of thousands of iconic weapons from throughout history. And on today's episode, Jonathan is taking a look at Riot Games' hero shooter, Valorant.
I enjoy reviewing science fiction games.
Here.
It frees you up to look at the design aspects somewhat. The downside is it's very hard to find real guns from the Royal Armouries collection to show you. I'm just going to show you this briefly. This is the ACR.
We actually recorded so much with Jonathan about Valorant that we'll be publishing 2 episodes for the game, so make sure to subscribe if you want to check out the second episode later on. And if there are any other games, guns, or mechanics that you guys want to see Jonathan break down, let us know in the comment section below. Right, let's take a look at the guns of Valorant.
Intriguing. This will probably be a trend, not a real gun, but it does sort of look and feel quite like a real gun. Looks like it might be made, or the receiver might be substantially polymer, which is, I think, never going away. We're probably stuck with plastic guns because it just offers so many advantages in terms of weight, cost, and maintenance, certainly over the old wooden stocks and things. Much better. It has a bipod and a big old C-mag on it, so it's sort of a LMG-esque thing, and it's absolutely spewing what looks to be 5.56mm casings out of the side of it, with very little recoil, interestingly. So I don't know if there's supposed to be some science fiction recoil damping thing going on. There's no massive muzzle device on this that would allow that kind of control. Equally, I don't know if the player is supposed to be amped up in some way on this. But the thing that strikes me the most about this are the sights, because I'm always going on in sci-fi games about why would we have iron sights? Well, this still has iron sights. It has some very H&K style diopter-esque sights with a drum at the rear and a round protected post at the front, albeit the post is sort of picked out in bright yellowish. But what's interesting is there's a device on the top that opens up and projects a holographic sight. Now, I don't know about it being mechanical and opening up, but I am very much of the mind that we will have, maybe not built in forever, but hopefully your gun would come with a stock sight that can be swapped out in future via some universal mounting system. So opening up like a flower, I'm not sure about that, but it kind of looks cool. But definitely projected holographic optics fit my preconceptions of what a science fiction gun should be.
Okay, this is the Marshall.
Insta pause on this one because I want to see the gun in profile. Maybe it's cheating, I don't care. So we've got a lever action rifle, but a very science fiction looking lever action rifle. Now, I have seen a few. We haven't really got any here at the armories yet, but I'd like to get a modern take on a lever action, maybe a modern Marlin, ideally the one from Jurassic World. This is more
that one looks pretty nice
science
though.
fiction looking than that though, but it's not that science fiction. But the basic barreled action and the lever and all of that underneath the stock, absolutely standard. Now, this isn't any one type of modern lever action. It's sort of an idealized version, but with the pivot point of the lever where it is, it's more like a Marlin than a Winchester, say. And then a tiny little scope on top, which does not look very futuristic at all. It looks like quite a first half of the 20th century, low power optic. So we'll see how that functions. The iron sights are very reminiscent of modern sporting rifles. Again, kind of racking my brains that this might actually be based on something. If it is, the stock isn't part of it, and that's kind of the overwhelming aesthetic that we see.
True.
Defeated.
Yeah, with this.
Okay, I really like the feel of
Yeah.
this. Might sound weird, but I think those of you who played games, all of you, will understand what I mean. It has sort of
Sounds
weight,
good, though.
and the sound effects help with that. The loading, it all feels very plausible. I say feels very plausible because these are firstly pointed bullets, which are not a good plan in what is presumably has to be a tube-fed gun. Problem being the point of one bullet goes up the back end of the one in front and detonates the thing in the tube. And there's enough pressure containing ability within that tube for it to hold the pressure and then let it go. And so the tube explodes in a shower of metal and plastic and pain. Not good. If you look at full-on rifle rounds for lever actions, you'll see that they have a flat tip for this reason. So that's one problem. The other is that whatever these are, and they look like 7.62 or something similar, maybe a sporting round equivalent in power to that.
Yeah,
they
something
are too
long, right?
I think, to fit 5 in a tube mag. I could be wrong, but certainly from this perspective, looks like that's maybe a 3-round mag at best, I would suggest. Now, I'm always looking at how things might operate in real life, if these things are real, you know that. And this looks like it might. It's got a reciprocating bolt, like a Browning or various other lever actions that use a straight fore and aft bolt rather than the toggle of the original Winchesters, and a dropping locking block at the rear. The only thing that gives me pause for thought is that we seem to have a big old firing pin sticking through that block, and I'm not sure how that would work in reality. But it may just be that I haven't had enough caffeine today yet. Now, what looks like a very straightforward pump action shotgun is really quite interesting. I had to watch that a couple of times, but we have in our little shooting range demonstration, this is the only way that clicked for me. We've got a firing mode, an alt fire, where it shoots almost like a rifle, but then only after a certain distance does it burst into a pattern of shot effectively. So it's almost like a way of carrying your buckshot to a further distance, but still having that spread effect.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen that before. That seems new to me. And the ability to do one or the other. It's not like you're locked into a shotgun that only
that's
works
cool though.
that way, such that at close range, if you wouldn't get the spread, but at longer range you would, so you'd have to use it like a long range.
Well, the Bucky is pretty
This means
shit
you
in
can
it.
use it either way. Now, for some reason, it's reminding me of the old flintlock knock volley gun, which I always think of as a way to do the same thing, to carry a pattern of shot much further out. We didn't have our modern ammunition technology, so they instead brazed 7 barrels together to create a pattern at maybe 100 yards, something like that. And this seems to be a way of achieving the same thing, albeit this is made up. But something new and different, which for a pump action shotgun in a game is pretty hard to pull off. Otherwise,
Airburst, I think.
Standard, but let's have a look at what the effect is. Gotcha.
Spike down A.
We've got some rounds in the shell carrier that I don't think this has a practical effect in the game, but some are facing one way up, some are facing the other. Now, I've seen people use that
Oh
as a
wow,
way
that's
to,
actually interesting.
not
I
only
didn't even
visually,
notice
but,
that.
in a tactile way, work out which rounds are which in their shell holder. So if they're trying to use slugs or buckshot, they know that their slugs are one way up and their buckshot's the other way up. This is probably just a visual reference taken from a real gun, and that may or may not have been what they were doing. Doesn't seem to be what they're doing in the game though. And of course we have a highly cosmetic safety on the top of the action. Why would we use that in a shooter? Right, this is a bit of a trend with your science fiction video game shooter, is you can see, or you think you can see influences. Humans love pattern recognition, me included, and we will try and say, that's based on this, that's based on that. Sometimes you don't know unless you ask the developers, because as in this case, I think I'm safe to say that the barrel assembly and the slide of this must surely have been borrowed from the Desert Eagle, but they've changed enough about it that this no longer actually really resembles a Desert Eagle. They have scaled down that massive barrel to a distant cousin of the Deagle, I would say. But it almost makes it look more like an auto mag or a Wildie Magnum, and it has a suppressor relatively futuristic looking, although we already have big blocky suppressors like that. So the controls, the controls again look like they've been translated over from the Desert Eagle, although the mag release is again different. So it's sort of the mullet of video game pistols. It's got Desert Eagle on top and something else down below. That's not a very good analogy. Let's see it shoot.
USP below?
Yeah, it's an intriguing weapon. It's got all those Desert Eagle design cues, but the scale of it, the fact that it has a suppressor and the way it's being used, it comes across more like a futuristic high standard, more sort of sneaky beaky and slimline. The other little detail I noticed is that the rear sight stays put. Now there are on sort of custom 1911, 2011 pistols design called a sight tracker, where the front sight is part of the barrel assembly and the whole rest of the slide reciprocates. This has a rear sight tracker. So instead of the rear sight being part of the slide assembly and it moving back and forth, not really a problem at pistol engagement distances for accuracy. This must be reaching for that extra accuracy by keeping both the front sight and the rear sight in place in space, if that makes sense. Obviously, recoil will make them both move.
I mean, though
relative
ADS
to each
or
other, they're not moving like a real Desert Eagle, for example. I enjoy reviewing science fiction games. Well, this one I focused quite a bit on how things actually work, but in general, it sort of frees you up to look at the design aspects somewhat. The downside is it's very hard to find real guns from the Royal Armouries collection to show you. I'm just going to show you this briefly. So this is I'm sure some of you already recognise, this is the ACR. This, and I mean this I don't mean this in a critical way, generic, futuristic looking assault rifle. Now, it actually has design elements of the SCAR a bit. The only thing I really put my finger on actually would be the magazine. The bumper,
it looks a bit like the SCAR
magazine, and the design of that magazine looks very SCAR. We can point to at least one design feature. This fence around the magazine catch is very reminiscent of the Phantom here, and the general lines of it. But then, to be fair, the HK433, the SCAR, as already mentioned, Bren 2, we are sort of converging on a fairly standard AR-15 ergonomics, AR-18 gas system, polymer lower receiver, aluminium upper. I mean, I don't know what Valorant's guns are made out of exactly. I think there's a lot of polymer, but it's a little hard to tell. It's a reasonable take on a near future-ish infantry rifle, because hey, if they already look like this, why wouldn't they look like that in however many years?
Very true. Oh, Vandal, it looks like an AK sort of gun. My opinion, at least.
Now, a couple of years ago, something popped up called the AK Alpha with an F to modernize the AK with a more modern architecture. And there are a couple of other attempts that are probably going to become more significant. So rather than a U-shaped metal receiver and then a sheet metal top cover with all sorts of problems for making that robust enough to mount an optic on, you go for a two-part upper and lower receiver like a lot of other designs. And this has done that. However, it hasn't taken full advantage of that advantage. It still has very AK-esque lines on the top, and it has just a cutout for a rather limited sight option. In fact, it's our generic holographic sight that we see throughout the game. That would limit what you could mount on the gun. That's why you normally see long strips of rails on the top of a rifle, so that you can put more than one sight on there if you need to, thermal, infrared, or you can mount one sight further to the front or the rear, depending on your eye relief, your body shape, all of that. Now we also have what at first glance looks like quite a modern buttstock, but doesn't really look to have any adjustable features. And that's a big no-no right now. It's a very AK magazine, almost identical to an AK magazine.
Yeah, it looks,
and the
it looks like an AK cousin.
Like 7.62 by 39. And now, to be fair, that AK caliber has never been. And it has a very AK-esque, actually it looks a bit Galili at the front with that gas block with the sight mounted on top of it. And a take on the AK-74 muzzle brake with a few liberties taken. Overall, very recognisably an AK, but it has that sort of AK Alpha, Galil ACE, modernized look.
10 seconds left.
Yeah, this is the K-Tech version.
Right, we've got some sort of a variant design of this thing that looks radically more futuristic, more science fiction. Even this, though, still has a hint of the top cover release button that's on the back of the AK to remove the top cover. Now, neither of these designs need that. So this is a trope of video game gun design, and probably other thing design too, where design cues get abstracted from reference images and placed somewhere on a weapon and then melded into the design. So you can go, oh, that looks like that. But it doesn't have a functional purpose. Now, the base design looks like that button might do something. We don't know what, but it is a riff on the release capture of the AK top cover. And then this more advanced looking version, it really is just a sort of design feature, aesthetic design feature, like the lines
skins,
of the car
I guess.
body. It doesn't do anything for the gun itself, as far as I can see. Still, even firearms today, their receivers can be and are designed for aesthetic reasons. The ability to put a barreled action in a shell effectively means that your outer body can be whatever it needs to be. We're seeing that from everything from the Tavor onward, the F2000. The HK433 is essentially a part of the reason for that redesign is so that it looks cool and futuristic. So it isn't just games that require aesthetics.
Kind of interesting to know.
Spike down B.
All right, those were the guns of Valorant, a totally new look on me. Always fun to go through. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to support the work that we do at the Armories, we'd love you to come and visit one of our 3 sites if you can. We're in the UK, so that's a problem for some of you. Otherwise, check out our website, our various social media outlets, and of course, I will see you again next time.
Yeah, what do you think? I think, in my opinion, this is really, really cool. And yeah, I like how they took some design cues from like guns in like real life and things like that. Do let me know what do you think, and if you like these types of videos, make sure to drop me a like to let me know, comment down below what other videos I need to check out next, and I'll be sure to do so. Also, if you haven't already, be sure to check out my live streams over at twitch.tv/TZHplays if you would like to be shouted out and I'll chat and be shouted out in my videos, or like to see what I film next. And also be sure to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Last but not least, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the video or live.